Okay, so I'm using Humbrol dark brown wash, which is an enamel wash, as my base for the washes. I've got this unthinned, but I have enamel thinners to hand if I want. And we're going to start right at the back where it doesn't really get any cleaning or anything like that, and just, this is why I've started out with it neat. It's an area that's likely to get a bit of dirt build up, and we're starting at the edges and just getting that wash in there. I'm just sort of smearing that all over that wooden area there. So you will be able to see the grey, but it will be a little bit more dark, which is sort of what we're looking for. Behind those pedals, no one's really going to clean in that area, so now we've done that, I'm just going to thin the wash that got accidentally onto the pedal areas. So on the pedals we can get that into those grooves there. It'll just change the colour, take the brightness out, tone it down, and then we can go in with a little bit of thinner if we think it's a bit heavy and lift a bit off. I'm actually on this pedal, this what would be the clutch pedal, I'm guessing. Just going to take that back a little bit. There we go. Okay, then we want some nice dark wash down this side here. Now adding a little bit of thinner as I go and putting that wash in around the metal bits that don't move, bolt it down to the floor, a little bit around the mechanism there, up the edge of the door at the back there. So I'm just dipping it in some thinner, mixing it, getting it a little bit thinner. You can put it in between the door frame and that there, and around this edge here. Okay, and now more thinner, and we can just go on the inside of there. There we go. Just tones that down a bit, not on the decal. We'll do round the bolts. A little bit where we did the scratching, just blends it all in a little bit. And then we're going to do right at the back here again, fully thick, gloopy at the back, lots of dirt there. Then we thin it. And then if we put too much in, just soak some of that off a little bit. There we go. Okay, and then in between the planks, you want that nice and dark. And up the edge of the floor pan there. You don't see these back panels, so we're not going to do anything with that. Okay. Around the base of the battery there. Up this side. There we go. Right. Now what we're going to do, I've got thinners in here. I'm just going to add some of that to the thinners. So this is much thinner than we've been using. And we're just going to use that to liberally go over everything and tie it all together. Give it that sort of dirty, worn feel. There we go, that's looking suitably more worn now, isn't it? So, just going to let that dry, and then we're going to go in with some damp earth. Okay, I think that is looking good now. So we're ready for the final bits, which we can't do until it's completely dry. So let's think about steering wheel and seat that needs to go in here. Right, seat's been painted in the deep brown and it's dried overnight, and I'm now ready to give it a bit more of a worn look. And we're going to start with light rust, because it's not too dissimilar a colour. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the side of it and just gently, I'm not pushing down, just go over it. Now I've gone over all of it there, but I'm going to go back over the areas where it will be sat on. And what it does is it captures the peaks of the roughness of the paint. So you can see there, gives it a bit of a worn look, and we probably want to do those edges, particularly where someone's sitting, and then the edge as they swing themselves in and out, and then we'll do a bit on the corner there. Okay, next colour is dark chipping for wood, which is going to give us a bit more of a worn look, and we just want to do that on the corner here, along the piping, but not in the middle section, just where it's going to get, and then just on those sort of edges, and possibly a little bit in the middle there. Bit more on the driver's side, because the vehicle always used by the driver, not necessarily always going to have a passenger. There we go. Okay, then we've got this light chipping for wood, and again we're just going to do this one because it's even lighter, just on this corner, and give you an idea of the surface breaking up, the colour rubbing off, and then just where those legs go, where there's a lot of pressure on the material, whatever the upholstery is. We'll do exactly the same process on the back of the seat. There we go. Right, then the last thing we want to do is I'm just going to use my finger and drag over it, and what that does, it's like very fine polishing, so it gives it a little bit of a shine. Then I'm going to rub it behind my ear where you have some of your natural oils, and then we're just going to go over it where it would sit, and it does a combination of things. It's blending in the pencil we've just put down, and it's giving it a bit of a shine, which adds to this sort of used, worn look. There we go. So that's the bottom of our seat there. And then the last thing we want to do is just give it a little bit of a wash to bring it to life. And we're going to again use the Humbrol dark brown wash. We're just going to pin wash it, which means we will thin it down and just put it in the grooves deliberately so we have no staining. So just going to take a small amount so we can take this off the top here, put it in the palette. There we go. And then we can add our Humbrol thinner. We just thin that out. There we go. And then we're just going to go in with a small amount and highlight those nice details between the where the stitching is, and that will just add a little bit of a used look to it. And then what we'll do is we'll do a little bit deeper just at the back there. There you go, and that's it done. So I've put the lower seat in. Head of us doing a little bit of dust weathering on the inside here, and I'm just test fitting this back bulkhead, which seems to fit okay. And then I'm thinking it probably makes sense to add the seat after we've installed that, just to make sure the fit's good. But as we dry fit it there, no real problems. So yeah, when you first look at it you think, oh, there's a gap, which doesn't look good, but in the instructions you can see that there is a gap, so I'm assuming that's how it's supposed to be, but it all makes up otherwise. So yeah, I'm going to glue that in while the going's good, and it all appears to be fitting as it should do. So just run some liquid poly cement into that there. sure we've gone the full length. Just put some in underneath the seat on both sides there. So that gap allows me to just get in and stick some glue up between the seat and the bulkhead, which will just help. There we go. So yeah, get in there. Now, so we've got the back of the seat to put in, and then we want to put the glazing in, but I want to do the dust before the glazing goes in, because it's difficult to get any off if we accidentally get any on. But I also want to mask off the windscreen ready for painting. So we need to mask the whole screen off for painting on the outside. So I want to put the back of the seat on, but I also want to put the glazing in. We've got, want to do the weathering, final weathering before we glaze. And we're going to have to do 2 lots of masking on the windscreen. So we've got to mask the whole area for painting the outside, but we also need to do a wiper mask as well. So I think the process will be to do the wiper mask, do a sort of a dust layer, paint layer, and let that dry and harden, and then mask that off, and then paint the outside paintwork, so that when we take the masks off, if it peels off the lower level, it doesn't matter if it takes off the lower masks. So yeah, there we go. That is building up nicely. So next job, yeah, it's looking good, that actually, quite happy with that. Next job is to get this seat in. So just going to run a bit of glue on that mounting point there, and we're going to put some on the bottom of the seat. Like so, and then on the top there, like so. And plop that into place. There we go, job's a good one. There, that's looking all right now, coming to life. So we are now ready to put the next layers of paint down on these figures, and we're going to do the khaki of the uniform. I'm using ICM 1062 for that, so we can paint everything that needs to be brown in its base colour. We'll use the unmixed colour straight from the bottle as the base layer, like we've done before, and then we'll go darker and lighter like we've done before. So it's taken me a couple of hours, but we have painted the base coat of British khaki down on all the figures, and I think they're looking great. So I'm going to leave those to dry, and then we can start doing the darker shades. The reason why we start with an unmixed colour as the base colour is you can always go back to that start point. So if you find that you've missed something or you don't like the effect, you can go back to this without having to match an original colour. So that's why we do that. So, you know, the figures are starting to come alive just a little bit. And now with the matte paint down, we can see much more clearly all the folds and what we need to put shadow in and what we need to put light effects on. So I'm going to clean that up and we'll get back to where we are with the tempo. So with paint drying on the figures, I'm returning my attention to the cab of the tempo, and we've made up a little bit of weathering powder. So this is a mix of several colours that we're going to just put in the sort of the edges and the corners, and just to make it a bit more lived in. Particularly areas like behind the pedals, where it's difficult to clean. People wouldn't be bothering to clean, particularly towards the end of the walk. There's other things occupying people's mind than cleanliness and what have you. So we just want to put some in. I'm using a fairly loose brush and just pushing it in. It will stay there. It doesn't need to be fixed in place. It's going to do two things. It's going to make it look a little bit dusty, and it's going to add some grimy definition in places where we need it. So we'll do this light coat first. There we go, and you can just go underneath the seat there, just for fullness. Gives it a nice used dusty look. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to brush a bit over everything generally, just to tee it all in. And the back edge of that seat there. Now remember, some of this is going to be hidden by the bodywork. So doing it now means that we've got this extra level of authenticity. When the eye catches it, it looks so real. Because it's hidden away, and yet you still see it, and it's unexpected, and it adds to the realism of what you're looking at. Okay, so we've done that with our little loose brush. What was it? Number 2 brush. I now want to go in and do something a little bit more marking in certain areas, highlighting certain areas. So I'm going for a much narrower brush now, where I can really grind it into places and make sure that we've got it absolutely where we want it. So by grinding in, we ensure that we've got some depth in the real dark crevices of this thing. So areas like the metalwork on the floor and the pedals, we can do that. And I'm going back behind the pedals and putting more in. I want it really grimy behind there. Okay, so that is the cabin done for me. See if we can get this to focus. So the last thing I want to do is just give it a light dusting, key everything in with one colour. Takes the harshness of the other colours away. There we go. I think that looks okay. Might just put a little bit more around this edge here. Right, we can now do the same in this engine area here. So around the back there. There's no way this didn't get grimy. And we'll go back to our big brush now and just give it everything a gentle dust. There we go. Now if there's anything we don't like, we can always go in with a clean brush and remove it. But I'm quite happy with that as a rule. There we go. So that does our cabin as well. Come on, focus. There we go. Take that away, that'll help. So that's the engine area. Just giving a light dusting for now. I'm happy that the seat looks a little bit worn and that our flooring and what have you looks like it's worn and used. So we're ready to carry on the construction. So I'm back all the way to step 2 now, where the windscreen gets added, and the windscreen goes in from the back. So my plan is to build the tempo up and then paint it with the doors shut and everything masked off, and use the shut doors as the mask. It all depends on the fit, but that's the plan at this moment in time. And then we can, after the paint's dried, we can open the doors up and set them as we intend to for the diorama, which I'm still not clear exactly what that's going to be, but my gut feel is we'll have the driver's one open and the passenger's one shut, because that'll be facing out into the road. So I do need to add the clear part here, and I need to mask it off, and I need to mask it off twice really, and I was playing with whether we were gonna put the dust on the windscreen first or not, but I've decided not. We're going to mask it just for painting, and then we'll put the wiper blade masks in later when we've unmasked after main painting, because I might end up, I don't know at this point whether I'm doing an airbrush dust or a pastel dust on the windscreen yet, so it may well be the latter, don't know. So I need to have a look at the clear parts and get that tidied up. We also need to do the 2 for the door, so I'm going to remove all of them at the same time. Then we can get the masking tape out and get masking that. Now there's some stuff on here we're not going to use, so we don't need that version. We don't have a back window because we've got a big back box on it. So we've just got lamp lenses left on there, but we don't want them to get scratched or damaged, so we'll keep them in their polythene bag. Right, so I'm going to tidy these up and then we'll have a look at doing some masking. And I do have an inclusion in my windscreen. Don't know if we can see it there. So we're going to have to weather that out in some way. So having cleaned up the glass parts, we've done some test fitting and they all fit wonderfully. The door ones fit great. So I'm gonna glue this windscreen in and then mask it. With these I can mask them before they're glued in because there's a frame, so they're not so bad. So I want to go with really thin, and my Plastic Magic has just got a slightly more viscosity, so I'm going with Tamiya Extra Thin for putting this in. Don't know whether this is going to come out on camera or not. Let's see. There we go. Don't know how much of that I've got left actually. So I'm just running it in from the back, letting it capillary in. There we go. The worry with clear parts is always, have you glued them in sufficiently, because you're going to be putting some little bit of force on this, taking the masking off, whereas we can support it when we're putting the masking on. Anyway, that is in. Masking these door windows is really easy. We put a little bit of tape over it, and I'm just using a cocktail stick there just to push it down, find the edges of the frame, and then we can go in with our knife and cut around it. But we want to make sure everything is nicely pressed into place first. That way the job of the knife is a lot easier. It's easier to see where you're cutting, and it makes sure we don't end up cutting it away from the frame. We keep the blade as close as we can. Fortunately, the frames are prominent enough for this to work. So the first thing we're going to do is actually cut around the frame. Just to get some of that excess off. There we go, just slightly cut that off. And that I can put to one side and use for something at some point. But we can just carefully go in now, angling slightly away with the top of the blade from where we're cutting, so we can see what we're doing a little bit. And it also puts the knife right into that edge. There we go. I think there is a slight curve just here, so we'll just go through that curve and then we can come down by the rest of the frame. Hopefully, if we've done the job right, we can just peel this away now and leave our mask behind. Nearly. Just a little tuft in the corner. Corners are often the most difficult bit. So I'm just pressing the blade into the corner to cut through it and then scraping it away. We don't want anything to get in the way of paint going down where we want the paint. There we go. Just going to tidy that edge up a little bit. And there we have it, we are masked, and we can now glue that into the door, and the fit of the glazing into the door is absolutely lovely. So we're ready to go. The windscreen is a bit more problematic because of the shape, but we're going to start at the bottom there, right in this corner, and just cut out a small section at a time so we know we're okay. I'm not going to worry too much. If we do get some paint on the glazing, we'll be able to remove it. Some rubbing alcohol, something like that, will get it off. But if we can avoid it, it's just one less job, isn't it? There we go. That's worked okay. So the seal around the window needs to be done in a pale grey anyway. So there we go. With the glazing now in, we can add the steering wheel, which we've held back until the glazing was in. It'd be much more difficult to get that glazing in once the steering wheel was in. So just plop that in, and there we go. Surprisingly big steering wheel, to be honest. But I guess they were a bit like that in those days. So that gets us well down the build now. So there's little bits that we haven't done, but we won't do that until we're constructing and painting. But there's other bits that we've already done. We're not putting the wheels on until later. So we're at a little bit of scratch building. So it's telling us to cut the length. I'm assuming that length will then travel further so we can terminate it wherever it's going to go. So let's have a go at this. We've already got the clips in place. So with everything masked and now held into place, just dry fitted, we can move on from that. Our instructions take us really to step 13, which we've done. We're not going to do step 15 as in put the wheels on, but this is the point where we can add some of this wiring. So it is telling us the lengths to cut, showing them where they terminate here, and then I guess we'll work out where they terminate somewhere else under the body of the main vehicle. So let's have a look at that. I'm intending in the first instance to use this lead wire. If it proves that keeping it in shape is too much of a problem, then we'll go to some copper or brass wire. But I want to try and use this first because it's easier to manipulate into shape. So let's see how we get on. Okay, let's see how we get on with this lead wire. The difficulty with lead wire is it is very, very soft, and the result of it being very, very soft is that it can break. It's really brittle. You can snap it. I mean, you can see how I've just bent it there. So I've got that threaded in. If I loosen this now and turn it around, So this needs to be glued into that point there. Right, no. Bend the end of the wire. There we go, that's in. Right, I think a dab of super glue to hold that in place, and then we can shape the rest of it. Okay, I've got some thin CA, and we're just going to dab that on. I think the wire's moved. Haven't touched it since, so why it's moved I don't know. Oy, oy, oy. Okay, that is definitely in. And we've definitely got glue on. Right, just give that a moment and then we can start shaping the rest of the wire. Right, we are on step 17 right now, and it's a little tricky to say the least. You've got two lugs that sit on the top and form ends of the planks. You've got two pins, which is all this sits on. So lining it all up is a little tricky, and you can see it's not quite straight, so you've got to bring this together carefully. You've got a little lip there, which goes over that. So you've got to get this absolutely spot on, otherwise you're going to be struggling to get the roof straight without any gaps. So I've managed to pinch it all together, you can see, and while it's pinched together we're going to glue it. So I'm going to start by gluing the underside. Which we've still got to paint anyway. And we've still got to paint the inside of this, so it doesn't matter if the glue takes away some of the primer at this point. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that's in nice and tight, and then there we go. So that is looking good. We're just going to let that dry, and then we can do this back end a little bit, so we'll give it a moment. Then we're going to put the other side on, but we're not going to put the lid on, the roof sections, because that'll just make it a little bit too difficult to paint. So I'm going to go for a grey in the back, and then we want to scuff it up a little bit so it looks like it's used and what have you. So when you do look in, because at least one door will be open, you'll be able to see that it looks used, and we might put some bits of paper in as rubbish or something like that. We'll have a look what we've got that we can chuck in. Right, so I'll just put some glue down there, push that up. Just going to go in underside as well and make sure that's all nicely done. There we go, that looks all right from that side. Everything's nicely lined up, so I'm happy with that. I think we're not quite glued in at this top edge, so put some in there. Right, okay. It's a lot easier now to put that one on because we've got a bit of rigidity in there already. So I'm just going to hold that in, let that dry, and then we'll put the other one on. You've seen how I'm doing it, so I won't necessarily show you that. I'll come back to you in a mo. Right, we've built up the back end, so I'm ready now for painting the dark grey that we started in there onto the rest of it. Some of it we'll do by airbrush, some of it we'll do by a flat brush. And then we can start looking at the weathering of those parts as we assemble. Right then, with the paint drying on all of my dark grey, and I've decided to go with the dark grey underneath as well. I brush painted it underneath because I thought we're going to do some heavy weathering under there and it might just help with the unevenness. So I've left it with the brush strokes in. I'm not doing a second coat. So yeah, I'm happy with that, but while it's all drying, because you want it really hard, I'm going to leave it 24 hours before I do any weathering on it. And we'll probably clear coat it at that point as well. We can now start the engine because we're skipping past adding doors for now, and we can get to step 20 and build up this engine, which is going to be fun. So let's start doing that. And we want sprue B, which is this one here. 4 and 3. So we'll start removing the parts. I'll get all the parts off and we'll start cleaning them up. And if I've got any tips, I'll show you. Otherwise, I'll come back to you when I've got most of this ready to go. Well, I have cleaned up all the parts. They're in piles that relate to the instructions. So there was nothing particularly needed to be talked about. So we can just start assembling really. So we've got no pins here, so we're just sort of leveling by eye. And we have a little pin there, so for another part. So I'm using that as my level really. Get some glue in that joint. Yep, can see that's gone in. And then get some glue in that joint also. Okay. So I'll leave that dry for a sec, and then we come to the assembly of this, and this bit goes on there like so, he says. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so just make sure that's nicely aligned all the way around. Yeah, that looks good. And then that fits on here, so like that. Okay, that's that done, and then we have a little linkage of some type which goes into this hole, and the fit of that is quite loose, so we'll put some glue into the opening. There we go. Get that straight. And get the angle right. Yeah, that's 90 degrees. So that's that on as well. Right, we can leave that to dry for a sec while we assemble some other sub-assembly bits. Just get my scraper out of the way. So this is my next section. Now there's some scratch build cables to do on this, but we'll get it painted up first. So that way around, and that goes on there nicely as well. Yeah, lovely. And then we have the manifold, which goes into this little recess there. That looks really nice when it's on. Not enough glue on it though. Okay, think that should be alright for now. Yep. Then we've got these two parts to go on. So I think we put this one on first. Goes there. Right, okay, I see. So I think we're going to put some glue on this part and then marry it up. So we'll get that wet and tacky. There we go, it's nice. And then just hold that in with my nail for a sec. Okay, so that's on. And then we have a little separate one that attaches on the side. So should be able to put some glue into this recess. Yeah, there's still enough on the brush to do that. That's excellent. No, damn, it's come off. Right, well, as we've got glue on that part, we'll glue it together anyway. It's a little fiddly. There we go. It is on. it's not. I finally got the assembly together off camera. It is very fiddly. I've just test fitted it. It fits onto these 2 points here. But the peg for that one is come off in the cleanup process. Whereas the peg for this one, which is round, is undersized for the pin. So I'm just trying to open that up a little bit. I don't know whether my reamer can go deep enough, to be honest. Let's give that a go and see what we think. No, still not sitting flat. Think therefore we'll just open it with my knife blade a little bit. And I'm going to shorten the pin . We'll just sand a bit off there, just in case it's a bit too long, and that's what's making it sit proud. Right, I reckon it'll work now, so we're just going to go straight in with the glue. It is so fiddly. There we go. Yeah, that's sitting flush. Broken the handle off that. Well, not broken, it's just come away. So let's put that back on. I think we'll do belt and braces this time and give it an extra dab of glue. Won't do it any harm. Okay, so just gonna put it in a clamp for a sec. Find a place to clamp it. There we go. Just while that's all drying, and I think what we'll do is we'll look at the sub-assembly there, because that's standalone. So we've got these bits here and this bit here, so 4 bits in total to put together. So we've got a centre bit with a spring and these little lugs. So let's just check that the pins and the holes fit flush. No, they don't. So we'll just sand the pins down a little bit. Right, that's better on that side. Let's check it on that side. Yeah, all good. Right, so we've got to bring this together. So that locks together like that. There's enough flex in there, I think, to pop that in afterwards. So I'm going to glue that together first. And then we can straighten it all up by placing it onto the little mud guard. Everything is so fiddly on this. There we go. I'm struggling like crazy to get that to go together and be flat. There's nowhere I can really hold the part, you see. Right, I think we'll sit this part in now. There we go. There we go. Right. Right, I think we can get some glue in the bottom there as well. And that'll make it a bit more rigid. So that is done. Another fiddly task though. Whew, right, okay, quite pleased we've got that bit done though. So that's another sub-assembly in the bag. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. It's free and that way you won't miss my first impressions, my tool reviews, my product reviews and any of my builds, including wooden model kits as well as plastic. It's all free, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can hit my PayPal link in the text below. Every pound goes straight into the channel to keep the cameras rolling and to do more fun stuff for you to watch.